we know without any doubt whatsoever that the measures undertaken by the government in terms of the COVID-19 response has resulted in a catastrophe when it comes to mental health. Mental health in Victoria, what the government is not saying. Alrighty, so folks, around 2 years ago, Daniel Andrews announced a whopping $870 million spend in order to supposedly fix the mental health crisis in Victoria. There were a few comments made by the Premier back at that time. I'm going to show it to you. Take a look.
The budget to be delivered in just a couple of weeks' time will include almost $870 million in new funding for more beds. So $870 million in new money for more beds, better treatment, better care, making sure that everyone across the community who has a mental illness can get the care that they need when they need it. This is important at a very personal level, but it's also something that we all benefit from in terms of productivity, efficiency, all of those things. But ultimately it's about...
Now that man right there, ladies and gentlemen, he is absolutely, without any shadow of a doubt, textbook narcissist. No doubt whatsoever, sociopath on steroids. This man, without question, has contributed to the large-scale suffering of millions of Victorians, even well before COVID in many different instances. One example I can give you off the top of my head was in relation to the rescinding of taxi licenses. That's right, when Uber was able to just be shuffled in by the government, lots of lives destroyed in that instance and even suicides. So the absolute backbone on this man to stand up there and to play the role of Mr. Compassionate. That's right, the government is here. We're going to provide you with beds. We're going to provide you with care. We're going to send mental health experts into schools. And by the way, I would never trust the government to choose any, quote, expert to be going into schools. Of course, we know in Victoria we've got the mature minor program, the doctors in schools, and it's just an absolute complete mess. So what we see here is a very, very typical tactic used by politicians all over the world. They'll participate in creating a huge problem in society, and then they will step forward and present themselves as the solution to a big problem that has manifested. But one thing they'll never do is claim any responsibility for the role they played in the bringing about of a crisis. And in this instance, we are indeed talking about a mental health crisis. Also, around 2 years ago, the government announced a royal commission into mental health here in Victoria, which I say was completely bogus and yet again another tremendous waste of taxpayer dollars. So let's take a little bit of a look here, ladies and gentlemen. So this is why I'm talking about this topic. I saw this tweet from Dan Andrews just the other day. He said here, quote, exactly 2 years ago, we were handed one of the most important to-do lists our government will ever receive, a royal commission into how to fix our broken mental health system. So he went on to detail the aspects of this royal commission in order to portray to the public that the Victorian State government really cares, that they're doing everything in their capability in order to fix the mental health crisis in Victoria. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what the government claims to be up to. But of course, all of this comes at a massive, massive cost to taxpayers. And here in Victoria, we're already the most taxed state in the country, and the cost of living is through the roof, and we just can't handle these types of expenses. Now, the biggest exception I take to this Royal Commission and these proposed solutions by the government is that at absolute best, they treat the symptoms, but they do not tackle the underlying reasons as to why we are in a mental health crisis, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that we all have a very, very good understanding of what those reasons are. Of course, when we look over the past few years, we know without any doubt whatsoever that the measures undertaken by the government in terms of the COVID-19 response has resulted in a catastrophe when it comes to mental health. So therefore, the Royal Commission itself is actually bogus and simply a waste of money. If we're not going to get to the underlying cause of why mental illness is out there, then I say that it's not even worth addressing in the first place. So here's some overall problems I see with it. All right, as I said, number one, the measures undertaken by the government are designed to treat the symptoms, not eliminate the cause, right? Because the government is the cause. Two, Royal Commission terms of reference can be constrained for the purpose of crafting a specific narrative. So the one thing you need to keep in mind about Royal Commissions is that the terms of reference are set up by the government. So the government can specifically leave out certain terms of reference that would be inconvenient to their narrative. Okay, so in this instance, if it was within the terms of reference to investigate the government's response to COVID-19 or public policy, then the outcome of the Royal Commission would have been very different, and the public would have lost a tremendous amount of confidence in the Daniel Andrews Labor government, and that's of course why that particular term was never included in the terms of reference. So really what we need is something more to the effect of a Senate inquiry headed up by somebody honourable such as Senator Gerard Rennick, because this Royal Commission is just a circus and is not attacking the underlying issues. All right, number 3, the government neglected to investigate themselves in regard to how public policy has affected mental health. So yeah, basically, ladies and gentlemen, what we see here is the government creating the problems and seeking to create the perception that they are indeed doing something about it. We know there's a mental health crisis. We're not interested in ongoing increases to our budget. What we're interested in is solving the problem that causes these mental health problems in the first place. And the only way to solve that problem is for Victorians to wake up and to realize that this government is not fit for purpose, to gather, to organize, and to take effective measures to replacing this government. I know it's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we must keep our eyes on the prize. We must think years in advance. Rome was not built in a day. So let this be a reminder to all Victorians that if we want to mend our state, it begins with replacing the government at all costs. Thank you for watching. To make sure you never miss an episode, sign up at mcjreport.com. Catch you on the next one.